The surprise of seeing my husband at a friend's baby shower is an experience I will never get over. It would appear that Jessica had no idea that Kyle and I were wed. You two appear so happy together, it's hard for me to believe that Kyle and Jessica even had a child together. Out of our tight-knit three. It seems like I'm the only one remaining. I pray that no matter what happens, you two will always be happy. Kyle nods in an uncomfortable way. But Jessica nods with a radiant smile. My knowledge of the truth is complete. Kyle is the type of husband who would tell his pregnant wife she can be lazy and unhelpful because pregnancy isn't a disease. The idea that he would cheat on me, especially with our best friend, is unbelievable to me. This action cannot be tolerated. I've made up my mind that Kyle is going to be bankrupt. Hi. I'm Ashley. And I work as a hairstylist in a small town. I spent my formative years here. Although it lacks the glitz of the city center, it is a welcoming neighborhood with great neighbors. I was in high school with Kyle. And we were the popular couple in our class. I used to be teased about being a wonderful prospective wife since I always knew the answer to everyone's questions regarding Kyle's whereabouts. Our third teammate Jessica, who longed to see the world, might be found glued to her earbuds, blaring British pop or radio. Even though she was a top student in our class. She went to school overseas and we barely kept in touch via email after she graduated. Since my family operates a beauty salon, I decided to attend vocational school to become a beautician after graduation. While Kyle went to school nearby, he eventually joined the family business that sold shampoo and other beauty supplies. And I got a job in the salon. The fact that this firm was an associate of my family's beauty parlor just added fuel to the fire of the speculation regarding our relationship. Even though Kyle was the complete antithesis of outgoing and outspoken me, we managed to get along well. We were married without a formal proposal because our romance started in high school. We began our new life together after purchasing a large city house. Not long after that, I was pregnant. The news that I was pregnant with my lover's child brought me immense excitement. And that night I joyfully informed him. Kyle. Guess what? I am expecting a child soon. His reaction was nonchalant, which disappointed me because I was hoping for an enthusiastic response. Oh. Really? He inquired. Don't you feel happy? Kyle did not say a word as he frantically searched for birth tales and due dates on his phone. The due date is next year. You should finish up your work by that time. He continued. Is that it? I don't know what else to say. I wasn't happy about his lack of enthusiasm. But I was soon in a dilemma. I underestimated how hard my first pregnancy would be. My unanticipated health issues and frequent doctor visits made it hard for me to work full-time. I unwillingly took an early maternity leave for my health. Kyle lacked empathy. He checked the average maternity leave length on his phone before approaching me. Maternity leave must start 6 weeks before due date per law. Is a trip too early? I explained how physically demanding my job is and how everyone's health is different. Also, my mom told me to let her do it. Pregnancy isn't a disease. So stop pampering yourself. I can only imagine what our child will be like if you're like this. Kyle abruptly said. I expect excellence from my kids. You must work too. I will divorce you when you become a lazy housewife. You've ignored chores lately. Right? Cooking and housing are poor. I can't manage everything right now. I'm pregnant. Therefore my diet is limited. Kyle was completely dependent on me for duties. Yet I asked him to cook. Since my family had a business, I was used to doing chores from a young age. But Kyle, whose mother worked hard at home, didn't. My mother-in-law always said, "Men in our family don't do housework." As if it were a woman's job. Kyle didn't know how to do laundry when they married since my mother-in-law was meticulous. I secretly disliked this. I realized I needed to use the restroom while thinking about how to approach Kyle. People who have given birth may sympathize. Although I went a lot then. I apologized but needed the restroom again. "Are you getting old or something?" Response: Kyle asked. "You need to pee more when pregnant. It's disgusting. Now you're continually complaining about your health. Like living with an elderly granny." Kyle went on a rant. But I needed to pee. I also didn't like that he treated me like an old person for other reasons. And I wanted to leave. Kyle stopped me from stating, "I'm going to the bathroom," saying, "I'm not done talking yet." Kyle paused to breathe. I made it to the bathroom after his long outburst. Kyle mockingly said, "That's so uncool." From behind the door. When we were married, I liked Kyle's calmness. But after I got pregnant, everything he does seems to go wrong. Instead of helping, he compares me to other examples he reads online. She returned to work immediately after giving baby and looked great. You'll be same. Please don't compare me to such fantastic people. Remember that you're both only human. Try not to let me down too much. Kyle seems to have high standards and accepts sketchy online content. This is why our conversations often turn unpleasant. Conflicts like this led Kyle to spend less time at home around the time I got pregnant. He went out on weekends and nights, claiming it was for work. This was new for us. It was the opposite of what involved fathers are currently discussed. One evening, Kyle came home late and I asked, "You've been busy with work lately, haven't you?" "My goal is to attract new customers." "It's not your problem," he raged. "But have you been drinking?" "Kyle? This is part of my job." Kyle shouted. "Stop harassing me." The neighbors probably heard. His breath reeked of alcohol. "You never had to drink for work. What happened?" "You couldn't comprehend. In essence, you are." This prompted more of Kyle's caustic comments. "You just sit around at home while I put in a lot of effort at work every day. This renders labor unworthy of effort. I'm not doing nothing. As for me, I'm currently occupied with getting ready for the birth. That is in no way an excuse to skip out on cleaning. Pregnancy makes you feel like you're giving up on being a woman. You don't feel like putting on much makeup anymore. That's terrible." As I positioned Kyle's luggage on the shelf, a tiny object clinked on the floor. And I fought back tears. "Just what is it?" With the wireless earbuds in my hand, I inquired. Their diminutive size, earring-like form, and endearing pink hue made them a popular choice among female consumers. "You have my explicit consent before you touch my suitcase." Kyle argued that it was an invasion of privacy. "I typically do this." "But Kyle, earphones aren't your thing. We should probably give them back if they belong to someone else." "I will be the one to fret over that. Pay attention to the housework." "I don't understand why you're so confused. For something as simple as pointing out a misplaced object, Kyle's reaction was overly dramatic. I felt a slight jolt to my midsection as I attempted to continue speaking. Kyle had booted me. Remember that you have my support. I will have to reevaluate everything if you persist in meddling. What had just transpired was beyond my comprehension. As Kyle stomped off to his room, I remained on the floor, my thoughts racing over what had just happened. My actions did not appear to warrant such a severe punishment. I couldn't understand Kyle's reaction, because I couldn't bring myself to admit that my spouse had kicked me. I went to the hospital the next day to make sure I was okay. Regarding my fall at home, I had fibbed. The baby was unharmed, but I was left with a bruised and swollen place where I had been kicked. In the midst of all this, wonderful news came in the form of Jessica's pregnancy announcement. I had heard she left the country for work and school, but it appears she is back in the US now. Our close trio was getting back together, and I really wanted to have Kyle there, but he had to go on a business trip. Despite my reservations, I went to Jessica's sunny hospital room alone to offer her congratulations. As I walked in, Jessica, who was looking relieved as she lay on the bed, managed to sit up a little. It feels like an eternity. I am really happy for you, I stated. Yours truly. Actually, I was unable to get in touch with you upon my return to the US around 1 year ago. I'm simply relieved that the delivery went smoothly. Compared to her undergraduate self, Jessica appeared more put together and mature. Beside her pillow lay the identical set of earphones that I had discovered among Kyle's possessions. Oh, these are my favorite, she confessed after catching my eye. My boyfriend went and got one for me when I misplaced mine the other day. Is that so? How would you describe your husband? Excuse me, I inquired. A knock on the door cut her off mid-sentence as she tried to explain that they hadn't officially registered their marriage. Kyle walked into the room, which caught me off guard. I was taken aback to the point of speechlessness. I know. Surprised. Huh? Jessica stated. I'm dating Kyle right now. As if she had no idea that my husband and I were married. In my presence, she beamed with naivete. Hello there. Have yourself a seat. Long time no see, Kyle remarked, his casual demeanor further confusing me. Our close trio is getting back together. Upon my return to the United States, I resumed seeing Kyle. We've been busy with the paperwork, but we're planning to get married. I get it. Indeed. It is evident that I am also pregnant, Jessica chimed in. As much as I wanted to spill the beans, I forced myself to just say, I have a baby in my stomach. I had to keep the kid and myself safe. I deliberated over the best course of action for this dilemma and have opted to maintain quiet for the time being. My spouse is currently traveling for work. My intention was to bring him today, but I was unable to. I said. I'm sorry about that. Jessica expressed her want to meet Ashley's hubby. It's unfortunate, but no doubt better than being alone with a husband like yours. My spouse is of little assistance. I secretly glared at Kyle, but he averted his eyes on purpose. You two seem content in each other's company, Jessica remarked. Our tight-knit trio has disbanded, leaving me alone. I hoped that no matter what, you would always be happy. While Kyle nodded in an uncomfortable way, Jessica nodded with a radiant smile. There it is. The baby shower favor. Bibs are always a good idea. So I went ahead and purchased some. My infant also has matching ones that I purchased. They're adorable. I remarked. No problem. Ashley. I can only imagine how eager you are for your kid as well. Jessica said. Sure. We should all go out together once I have a healthy baby. I said. The word all made Kyle's shoulders twitch. And I could tell because of it. With a wide grin on my face. I pretended not to notice. Oh. Shall we snap a picture? By the way. Excuse me. I inquired. As they posed for the photo. Jessica cradled the infant while Kyle stood by her side. As I stepped out of the hospital room, I manipulated a smile. My shoulders heaved and my breathing got labored the moment I stepped outside. Inside, I could make out the elation in Jessica's voice and the deep rumble of Kyle's replies. I hastily made my way home from the hospital. I got in touch with a realtor right away. Hello. I am selling my house. And I realize this is very unexpected, yes. You can put it up for sale immediately. The papers will be completed promptly by me. Additionally, do you have any recommendations for movers? Excuse me. I inquired. Using the real estate agent's contacts, I made plans to sell the house and hired a moving company. I then gave Kyle's parents a call. Mother. I'm sending some stuff your way due to an important matter with Kyle. Please don't be surprised. There will be a lot. Yes. I replied. I had made the decision to remove all reminders of the home we had shared. It was stated by Kyle that he will be away on business until tomorrow. Most likely. Kyle had made plans to stay somewhere tonight. I intended to send his stuff straight to his parents' place. But I also wanted to let my mother-in-law know so she wouldn't be shocked. As soon as I was done making these plans, Kyle called. He had, in fact, called constantly ever since I got out of the hospital. I drank some water calmly, ignoring the calls. A message said, "Let's talk things over. Just the two of us." Then appeared. But in this state, what was there to talk about? And to top it off, I was suspicious of Kyle after getting kicked in the stomach. I wasn't even interested in hearing his voice because my initial caution had now evolved into mistrust. I arrived home and got to packing right away. I entered Kyle's room and started packing his items into boxes. Since it was the off-peak moving season, I was able to arrange for the movers to assist with packing. And the shipping process went more smoothly than I had anticipated. The only thing left to do was mail my stuff. As soon as I called my parents, they moved in and the relocation was over. I discovered something when going through Kyle's room, an unfinished divorce form. Kyle seemed to be planning to move on to Jessica. I decided to keep the divorce paperwork safe and filled in the remaining parts. Seeing this as an opportunity, it was at that moment that my mother-in-law called. Ashley. I knew some stuff was coming, but not as much as I had anticipated. What took place? In reality, Kyle has been in a relationship. Is Jessica the person you knew in high school? It appears that they had a child together. On the other end of the phone, I could feel my mother-in-law losing it. Despite my sympathy for her, I carried on talking. Sadly, I can provide proof. I'll email you a picture. I emailed the picture of Jessica holding the baby and Kyle standing next to them that I had taken in the hospital room. I said, "I don't want to believe it. But it's true. It's the truth. And I don't want to believe it either." I went on. "I'm going to spend the night at my parents' house. After then." It seems like my mother-in-law tried to get in touch with Kyle. But she was upset when she was unable to do so. I told her straight out that he was no longer family when she inquired where I knew he was. My mother-in-law appeared to comprehend my choice based on her reaction to it. I packed up my things and went back to my boyhood home that night, where I slept soundly in my old room. Kyle sent me a message the following morning, saying, "Hey, the house is empty and there's a for sale sign up. What is happening? Do you not realize that your home no longer exists? I've sent your stuff to your parents' place for the time being. It will be useless to come back tomorrow as I'm replacing the locks. How did you proceed? I guess we should at least have a conversation. I'm going to your folks' place this afternoon. I'll speak with your mother directly." I hung up the phone immediately and got ready to leave. That afternoon. Kyle's parents. My parents. Kyle. And I convened at their home with all the pertinent parties. My mother-in-law appeared very pallid. She boldly struck up a conversation. "Kyle. Is it true that you're having an affair with your friend Jessica? A romantic relationship?" "No. Mom. That's simply how late we started dating. I don't care about justifications. Additionally, a child is engaged. It seems we're quite compatible." My mother-in-law punched him at that very time. "How are you able to achieve this? Ashley is expecting your baby. How are you going to confront her?" It was the first time I had ever seen Kyle's mother behave in such an unusually agitated and shrewd manner. Kyle appeared oblivious to the blood trickling from his nose. For what purpose was that? It makes sense for a couple in love to have a kid. What kind of statement is that? I became involved in the dispute. First of all, why did you even start dating Jessica? While I was out making sales calls, I ran into her at the station. She was occupied with her new work and had recently returned to the US. You can't have the charisma that she possessed. That doesn't seem like a good reason to go on a date. Even though I've adored Jessica since high school, I chose you since I felt she was out of my league. His self-centered logic left me stunned. I discovered Jessica didn't think poorly of me when I ran into her again and we spoke about the past. There was no excuse for them to be apart. Kyle had concealed our union from Jessica and had entertained the idea of ending our union upon Jessica's pregnancy. I also became pregnant. Things stayed the same since Kyle lacked the bravery to file for divorce or the determination to be married again. How are you so self-centered? Isn't it embarrassing to manage two women? Ashley and Jessica are quite different. It wasn't until I saw Jessica again that I realized how unhappy I was with Ashley. I want to be a guy and be married to Jessica again. Avoid making jokes. To call someone like you my kid makes me feel humiliated. Her rage had no boundaries. We will break up our parent-child relationship if that is how you feel. You also lose your job at the company. Live independently from now on. I'm not bothered. I was curious, though, because Kyle had always worked for our little family business. Could he handle a different role? There is nothing that you comprehend. Ashley's beauty salon was the only reason you were able to work up to this point. What's Ashley's salon? Exactly. The performance I gave had nothing to do with that little country store. Ashley's salon's promotion of our products is the only reason you were able to obtain any results. You ungrateful person. With regret. My parents, who had up until now been listening to the conversation in silence, announced that they would no longer be doing business with Kyle's company. It is unavoidable. I will launch a new company. I can accomplish anything if I study. And I'm still young. After giving birth, Jessica will resume her job soon. So our new life will be safe. I said softly into my phone. So he says. Out of nowhere, Jessica's voice screamed. Are you stupid? Throughout the meeting, I was able to stay in constant contact with Jessica over video call. If I had known you were married to Ashley, I would never have dated you. I still can't believe I betrayed Ashley as well. Honestly, you're not very good at business. And your lack of planning in this discussion is shocking. After contacting Ashley, I opted to join the conversation. And I'm happy I did. You will never be seen by me again. Wait. Don't leave me. When I'm with someone as terrible as you, why should I remain? Even though I'll be paying child support, I intend to raise the child alone. Kyle appeared to come to the realization that he couldn't persuade Jessica when he heard her stern tone. Ashley. I was completely incorrect. He turned to me in an urgent plea. Set this aside and let's be a couple for the sake of our child. I would never stay married to a crook like that. The horrible things you've done will always be with me. Seeing you in Jessica's hospital room shocked me. Deliver the peace. I thought you were supposed to be the nice one. The awful sight of Kyle's face, still coated with dried blood, as he helplessly stared at me, was heartbreaking. My head shook slowly in protest. Your return to me solely due to the failure of our relationship with Jessica is far too convenient. But you'll struggle to be a good parent all by yourself. Won't you? You are more of a distraction than an asset to my career. No. I refuse to be suckered by a man who isn't worth my time. My folks were completely on board after I told them what was going on. Even a good law firm was known to them through their business contacts. The divorce papers that I had discovered in Kyle's drawer were given to him. The divorce paperwork is ready. As you can see, the last step is to turn them in. How about we decide on child support and the split of property right away? Wait. I have to pay Jessica and now you too? You can't ignore Jessica either. Even though I am still your wife. We are prepared with attorneys. Then Kyle tucked his hands beneath his face. My stomach ached in a way it hadn't before. Ow. It hurts. I knew I was about to go into labor then. I was taken to the hospital by my parents as soon as the conference was clearly adjourned. The meeting and the delivery had left me emotionally drained. And everything transpired at a breakneck pace. My body sank into the mattress. And I slept soundly. I remained groggy even after the nurses roused me from my slumber. Upon receiving my release, I took my newborn back to my parents' house. The news of Kyle's acts was discreetly relayed with her clients, who were largely housewives, by my mom, a beautician. The town was swept away by her brief remarks. At the same time, Kyle attempted to launch an e-commerce business, fully depending on the internet but failing to recognize the significance of personal contacts. But word of mouth was more effective than his abilities. The rumors prevented him from getting bank finance. And as a result, his firm never got off the ground. A video chat with Jessica dealt Kyle yet another setback. She had filmed their whole chat using a different camera, edited it to highlight his egocentric actions, and then distributed the tape to our high school peers. Because of this, Kyle had no one to lean on for support and had no friends left. After being kicked out of his parents' house, Kyle was left to fend for himself. He spent all of his cash on an internet cafe while desperately searching for a new place to live and a job. As a jobless man without a permanent residence, he had a hard time securing lodgings and eventually relocated to a faraway place. There, Kyle got a day job doing physical labor that he had never done before. But he was treated with no mercy. If he didn't pay his child support even once, I threatened to prosecute him for assault on a pregnant woman. Photos of my wounds and my hospital records would be strong pieces of evidence. Almost around the same time as I gave birth, I filed for a divorce, thus becoming a single mother. But I wasn't the only one. I chose to move in with Jessica after finding a bigger apartment. Our new lives began as a family of 4, complete with our babies. Since Kyle is no longer in our lives, my best friend Jessica and I have become even closer. And the kids get along just like siblings. Having each other's backs when it comes to childcare helps keep professional and personal life in check. We intend to take the kids to the park for the first time when they're a little older. At least for the time being. We're content with our new life.
After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Now, let's watch another similar story. I'm pregnant with your husband's child, my sister abruptly confessed, leaving me utterly bewildered. Therefore, I am seeking a dissolution of my marriage. I intend to remarry your spouse, a physician with a monthly salary of $10,000. My sister had a firm grasp on my husband's hand when he peered down at me gravely from beside her. I was speechless from shock. What's up with that expression? You look terrible, as always. Because of this, your husband has reconsidered. My sister's loud laughter made my heart feel cold. Now you'll have to live on your pitiful pay. Apologies would have been nice, but I figured they wouldn't get it. While staying quiet about the reality, I couldn't help but giggle at the mistake. I am Jessica. It's been 3 years since Brandon and I tied the knot. It was at the university tennis club that we first met. When I needed a break from the crushing weight of undergraduate coursework, I would go play tennis. The group was a lot of fun, and I would frequently forego studying in order to play on the school courts. You have a nice swing, he said immediately when he saw me, even though he was in a different department and didn't appear to be very involved in his studies. He never failed to contact me whenever I went to the club. Up until I hurt my knee in high school, I played tennis regularly. However, in contrast to me, you're quite skilled at it. You can learn from me. I believe we're a perfect fit. This sounded like a standard pickup line, but I still bought into it. Actually, I was always too preoccupied with my studies to date anyone or even have a meaningful discussion. I allowed my husband's optimistic outlook sway me, and I had no idea the challenges that lay ahead of me even now, 5 years later. We tied the knot after finishing college. It would be a lie to claim that our relationship did not have any ups and downs while we were in school. However, I was able to forgive my husband for his thoughtless actions, and we remained together until graduation. I now question whether my trust in his word that he would be a decent husband was misplaced. I had faith in our 5-year relationship and continued to trust him at that moment. I accepted his proposal with a somewhat lighthearted attitude because I believed he was a good person at heart. We both got jobs, and I was ready to go up the corporate ladder. I believe my husband actually supported my ambitions rather than stifling them. Our household income was large thanks to both of our jobs, and we felt blessed to have some financial flexibility while we were young, in our haste to build our lives and careers. We have decided against starting a family just now. I was having a great time and making great strides in my job, but then I found a message on my husband's phone, the one he'd left in the living room, from an unknown number. While we were students together, my husband had demonstrated symptoms of passive infidelity by surreptitiously chatting with a girl from another club. Normally, I would refrain from invading his private in this way. To gain access to my husband's phone and launch the chat app, I typed his birthday. I discovered inappropriate conversations with one woman. Much to my dismay, my husband was instantly confronted by me. He seemed as confused as a zoo monkey. He attempted to minimize the situation by saying, "It's not what it looks like, it was just a lapse in judgment. Did you just confess to cheating? You were romantically involved with this woman." "Excuse me," I inquired. "Well, that's just how it is." His response was an uncomfortable air of casualness, as is customary. "We can convene in the hotel. She's barely out of high school, and you're too old to send such crude remarks. She is a relative newbie. My spouse had been unfaithful to a female employee he was teaching." To sum up his narrative, it was a typical scenario, but I couldn't help but question the quality of her training under his guidance. "I really apologize. I promise not to make the same error twice." Ultimately, I was able to forgive my repentant spouse. We had been acting in the same way since our time in college. His reckless attitude annoyed me, but unlike our college days, we had a lot of responsibilities now. We knew that telling our friends, family, and co-workers that we were divorcing him would only make them unhappy. To be honest, it seemed easier to put up with his errors than to go through this difficult procedure. I made him write an apologetic letter and warned him that he wouldn't get away with it the next time. We kept our word. Barely making it through a variety of difficulties in our married life, I was devastated to learn one day that my father had passed away. My mother called to tell me that he had passed out after drinking and had been taken to the hospital. It turned out to be a stroke, and he never fully recovered because of the time it took to diagnose it and the extreme cold of the winter night. It was right before his retirement. He was 60 years old. I was in charge of all the funeral preparations because my mother was inconsolable and unable to handle the circumstances. I finished the funeral arrangements with the help of family members and in a tired mood. Even though I felt bad about the disruption to my job, my supervisors and co-workers were accommodating and never voiced any complaints. I shall never forget their assistance. Managing my sister was one difficult situation. Anna is my older sister, and she is 2 years my senior. She moved out of our house after high school, and I hadn't seen her in almost 10 years. Her situation was terrible. She had always been a troublemaker, frequently getting into conflict with the police and generating problems for our parents. She had a history of risky connections with males. Since junior high school, she had dated several adult men, some of whom were married. She was regularly chastised by my parents, who urged her to live a normal life and not jeopardize her future. Sadly, it didn't appear like their suggestions would change her. After it was eventually revealed that she had surreptitiously taken money from our house to give to a male host, there was a heated argument with our parents, particularly our father. It was not unexpected that he disinherited her after stating that she was no longer welcome. My sister stormed out of the house after her father said, "I don't even consider you my daughter anymore." She vowed she would never go back to such a depressing house. As promised, my sister withheld her face until after my father's passing. I had to give her a quick message that day even though I had to tell her about his passing, because her phone number was still the same. Even though my mother was furious, she said it wasn't necessary, but I couldn't completely disregard my sister. She didn't respond until shortly before the funeral. We were breaking our fast for the post-cremation lunch when she eventually showed up. After nearly a decade, she turned to face us with makeup applied so heavily that it was 3 times heavier than before. She was interested in the fact that I had brought my husband and said, "So, you got married without much change." Despite being able to attend the wedding while taking a break from work, my husband was remarkably bashful and submissive with my sister. He is not the kind to take well to formal situations. I wish the event would conclude soon since I was afraid about how awkward it would be. "Your spouse is not unattractive. How were you introduced to him?" "At work," inquired my sister. "A college club brought us together." "We work in quite different environments," I said. "Well, that was a nice landing. You did study all the time, right? It's wonderful that you have a spouse that is somewhat educated. You don't appear to be having money difficulties," she said. "Well, the pay is good because one of us works as a doctor. We both work, but above all, you ought to honor our father in the right way." "Ah, a doctor," my sister remarked, a cunning look lighting up her eyes. She looked at my spouse and may have even licked her lips. My husband was clearly agitated as a result of her critical stare. My sister did not end up giving me any money for condolences. Despite having pledged to get in touch with me shortly after the event, I refused to wallow in my mother's sorrow or in the past. After around 6 months, Things started to seem off. I had almost forgotten about the days of the funeral. Even though the agony of losing my father hadn't totally healed, but it seemed like it was fresh in my sister's memory. I once saw a known figure at the station after work. The man in the navy suit that I had laundered the day before was none other than my husband Brandon. I was taken aback by the sight of the woman standing by his side. They looked really kind to one another as they held hands. My spouse was involved in more misconduct than I had previously believed, and my fury was rising as a result. Holding his hand, my sister Anna stood next to my husband, who was dressed in a miniskirt. The man I was married to was having an affair with my sister. Feeling compelled to express my astonishment, I chose to accompany them. I will not forgive my husband this time if this was really an affair. His infidelity with my sister was the last straw, even though he had previously tormented me with his womanizing. Plus, they had initially crossed paths during my dad's burial. I would not rest until I caught them red-handed. As I clenched my jaw in frustration, I concentrated on maintaining their visibility. Towards the hotel district they marched, as one would expect. My husband was expected to be at work, and it was still daylight. I was curious as to his rationale for leaving the office. Walking closely together, they passed by a number of hotels before coming to a stop at one. And then they started kissing. I couldn't stand it. My husband's adultery had never been seen by me before. Afterwards, I watched as they entered the hotel. I tried to control my nausea for a bit before calling my husband's phone. My spouse did, at last, respond after a nervous time. "I don't know. I am currently employed," he stated. "I have to double-check something with you." "Seriously, to whom are you currently speaking?" "Obviously, you know, my boss and co-workers are here with me. We are approaching a crucial meeting. The Love Hotel Jewelry Resort is where you need to be for some serious business meetings." "Huh, wow, what a name." My wrath level rose as I responded, to which she said, "How do you know that? You have my sister's assurance that she is with you. You should be the one to provide an explanation." "My sister and I will just have to wait." Brandon's voice came out as raspy and labored. He finally confirmed the room number after some reluctance. I sat up, all right, as I braced myself. I went berserk at the hotel, told the receptionist what was going on, and paid for a different room. I would not have mercy after what my spouse had done to me. My husband, who appeared pale and dressed in a robe, was waiting for me outside room 402, wearing an equally arrogant grin. My sister stood behind me in the identical robe. Anna exhibited zero signs of regret upon the arrival of the sad wife. On the contrary, her heavily applied cosmetics gave the impression that she was relishing in the moment. I went to my sister first. A sinister grin spread across her face. "What on earth are you thinking, Anna? Despite knowing he is my spouse, you have remained with him." "Why?" She finally spoke up. "Well, it's frustrating. I've had a really hard time since I was kicked out of the house. The host I was assisting even left me high and dry. So far, I've had nothing but bad luck." At the same time, "You're enjoying your married life. Your egotism is the reason you ran away from home, wasn't it? You were a constant source of stress for our parents, and now you're attempting to do the same to my family." Anarchy had simmered since the beginning. Brandon had made the comment that it was sad that I was so critical all the time. He doesn't even get a moment of peace at home, so I've been comforting him. "Remember, your words have consequences. This seems to be an issue within our family," I corrected. "So you're simply failing to meet your husband's expectations. A dull woman like yourself." "That's where I differ. We have been together for 6 months because I make him happy." "You lied. Ever since my father's funeral, it has been. Please get me." "Hi Jessica." Each of us was fatigued. "You nagged me and there was minimal marital intimacy. More than a year had passed without touch." My shame increased when my spouse told his sister-in-law about our marital dishonor. Fighting back tears, I faced him. "Infidelity was the main reason we broke up. Did you promise not to cheat again? Also, how would that work with my sister? Just one day after my dad died. You can't blame Brandon anymore. He's not yours anymore." My sister interrupted my husband. He raised his head and glared at me determinedly. Personally, I was astonished. "I need a divorce, Jessica. Becoming parents makes us proud." "What? You heard it. Expecting a child, naturally. Brandon is father," she said. "This belly is the result of our almost weekly making love since then." gently rubbing her stomach. No words came out, not accidental, intentional. My sister wanted to take my husband, and he never used contraception. They took particular care to show me the baby. Your lack of opportunities is unfortunate. Now I have him. Brendan, isn't he going to leave you and marry me? Let us three and our baby enjoy life to the fullest. I'll give it my all. Brandon agreed. You were rejected. You have my deepest sympathy. I own it because to your sophisticated lifestyle. My sister laughed. When her taunting laughter filled the room, I left the hotel. I can't remember how I got home. After arriving, I puked 3 times in the bathroom. My gut was knotted, and I cried as I rushed. Even more terrible than losing my husband was treachery. My sister and husband used the baby to degrade me. After crying all night, I woke up weary. After that, my spouse stopped coming home. He was clearly living with my sister. And I'm terrified he'll soon deliver divorce papers and our 5-year-old wedding band. I hit my lowest point that day. Despite my attempts, I couldn't take a sick day. Only I could be trusted, and my job was my rock. I tightened my jaw and went to the office, fighting nausea and tears. A week later, my sister and husband appeared during my workplace. I wasn't surprised they were astonished. My sister gazed at me in my white coat incredulously as she clutched her belly in a patient's chair. Why are you here? I oversee obstetrics and gynecology today. I explained that your usual doctor is unavailable. You're a doctor, but why is Brandon supposed to be the doctor? My sister was confused, looking at me instead of my husband. You must have misunderstood, sister, I joked. Practicing medicine, hard work got me through medical school. Brandon proudly claimed to be a doctor during the funeral. You liked the concept of an educated man. I just mentioned that one doctor may make a decent living. You erred. Brandon faked being a doctor to get you to sleep with him. I'm ashamed. His salesmanship is inferior to your adulthood. What is low paid? Exactly. How about 1 million per month? We had previously called a dealership to buy a new car. Shopping for designer shoes and purses emptied my credit card. What gives with all this money wasting? What brings Jessica to this hospital? She should work at another hospital. So I brought her here. The hospital doctor helped me many times throughout my time off for my father's funeral. I'm doing the reverse now that she's in trouble. Even if you two were unfaithful, I worked hard. Listen, Jessica, we're done. Tired of you. Get divorced or remarry. But pay me alimony. Wait, Jessica, I erred. Change my ways this time. For now, ignore the divorce. You saying what? You cheated with an office female. Remember, you pledged to pay my alimony if it happened again. I showed my husband my smartphone captured vow with his signature and thumbprint. I heard my spouse scream silently. At least 5 million yen. I could add more as it was after my father's burial. An excellent lawyer will be contacted. You two can quiver while waiting. Do I have to pay alimony too? Will you demand it from me? Yes, of course. Stealing your sister's husband indicates that. No worries, I'll give you time till the baby arrives. My moral duty as an obstetrician, be careful to pay once the baby is born. Get rid of your luxury bags and shoes and pay my father's funeral. You must kneel at his tomb to apologize. I stared at my sister and left. The regular exam began. After I told her to go on the bed, my sister left the exam room, possibly terrified of my rubber gloves. My husband remained, wanting to say something, but he sheepishly departed under the nurse's chilly gaze. I thought I wouldn't see my husband's face anymore. I felt free, and 6 months later, I learned my sister had a healthy baby girl at a separate facility. Knowing the baby was healthy made me feel relieved despite everything she did. I didn't feel sorry for my sister. After the kid was born, I wrote my sister for 5.3 million yen in alimony. I'll give my mother 300,000 yen for my father's burial. My ex-husband had a hard life. Due to allegations of his affair, he resigned from his work and struggles with alimony. He may be working temp jobs since he can't get a full-time career. Whoever spread the rumors should not be mentioned. I heard through the grapevine that he still practices womanizing. He seems to be hitting on every lady he meets to vent his wrath at my sister. They make a good couple at this rate. After separating from my ex-husband, I feel reinvigorated and am focusing on my obstetrics career. Today, 2 pregnant women with large bellies await my assistance. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.